greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. When the mind is pure, joy follows like a shadow that never leaves. That is how important and amazingly our brain operates.
I am a victim of depression. And, when I was going through this dark phase, I faced a lot of judgment from the society, from my friends, from the people that I could trust to be there for me. I was judged by the same people, and it reached a point that I was away from my family.
It was social anxiety and mild depression, I remember, and it started when the bullying started. So I actually had lived with depression without knowing.
Because I've had depression and anxiety for close to 12 years now, since I was in my teen days.
Being mentally healthy can be defined as a condition in which individual is emotionally and psychologically well. On the other hand, being mentally ill encompasses a wide variety of conditions which affect the way one feels or thinks. Research by the World Health Organization reveals that 1 over 4 people is or has been affected by mental or neurological disorders at one point in their lifetime. The research continues to state that mental illness accounts for 30% non-fatal disease worldwide and 10% of overall disease burden, including death and disability.
There are different various causes of mental disorder, and first of all, we look at it from both two big or broad perspectives, nurture and nature. When I'm talking about nurture, it's the biological processes, and it's the environment. So when you're looking at these two, we go back to the nature. We refer to imbalances in the brain chemicals that can go wrong and make somebody to have mental disorder. On the other side, we may have trauma or traumatic, maybe trauma in the brain, which may cause some problem. And this could also be biologically related to the heredity of an individual. For example, if you're coming from a family with history of mental disorders, you may find yourself getting predisposed. You are more predisposed to getting mental disorders than any other person who does not have history of family history of mental disorders. Now, in the nature aspect of it, we have the environment, the situations that a person may be going through.
I would say in hindsight, mostly it started with grief after losing a parent and not building the social support to address that. And so when I got to the point where, so at the time I was 17 was during the elections, and there was a bit of, that's when you're at an age where you're affected by the political temperatures, especially when you're in a situation where tribes come into place. And there's a lot of tension. There are things suddenly you need to process certain things, like politics and all that, and how it affects you as an individual, because earlier you couldn't. So I think it was just a matter of triggers during that time that led me to feel really, where I felt really isolated. I didn't feel like I had people I could talk to about what I was going through.
Mine was situation. I was going through too much. When I was in school, when I was growing up, so it was hard for me because my mom was diagnosed with leukemia when I was very young, and growing up with her and seeing that all these things she's going through because she's a single parent, it was hard for me. For any child to see that their parent is going through so much. And I had to pick up something that is not healthy. Like I put on a brave face and I don't speak out when I'm going through something. So this led me to a very dark place, and even as I was going to campus, I had relationship issues. You know, I was dumped in a very what word will I use? I was dumped in a very harsh way. And being a naive girl, just a freshman in campus, it was very hard. And this was the trigger, like it was what triggered now me to fall into, I was not in control of my emotions.
So it kind of started as a stress and then developed into depression?
Yes, yes. And I had lost so much weight, because, you know, some of the signs and symptoms of depression are, you know, loss of weight or gain of weight, because you might get too much appetite or little appetite. And for me, I lost weight. I lost 10 kgs in 2 months. And I remember going home to my mom, and my mom saw me like, is this my daughter? Like, she just saw me and just burst into tears. I was not willing to go see a professional at first, because I didn't feel like I wanted to tell anybody my problems because of what I had faced in school with my friends. But my mom sought help for me, and she got in touch with a psychologist who's been working with me through my journey for now 4 years, and it's been amazing.
I've always struggled with anxiety, and I realized it was as a result of bullying, which had happened growing up.
In school?
Yes. In primary school and in high school, I went through bullying that made me have low self-esteem. It made me have low self-worth. It made me feel like I couldn't interact with people because I was feeling less than them, like I was not worthy enough, like I am not enough. Yeah.
So did you seek help from a profession?
I didn't seek help from a professional. I talked to my dad. I tried to look for someone in my environment and with whom I'm comfortable to. So I talked to my dad, and he's been a very supportive figure in the journey of recovery. Yes. It was social anxiety and mild depression, I remember, and it started when the bullying started. So I actually had lived with depression without knowing, which is something that happens a lot. So many people go through mental health issues, but they are not even aware. Yes. So after I understood the symptoms later on, that's when I actually realized I had been going through depression, anxiety. Yes.
When you revealed this to your dad and to maybe those people surround you, how was the reception?
Different categories of people responded differently, because there are friends who first didn't even understand what I am talking about, because all they see is someone who is bubbly and happy, and they're wondering, what are you saying that you're going through depression? And then there's a group of people who will not even care, or they will judge you, which is very demeaning, and it makes the situation worse. And then there's a group that will try to walk with you through the journey, just like my dad did. Yes.
Did you know that we have over 10 types of mental disorders? However, the commonly diagnosed types include attention deficiency hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD, depression, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, trauma, migraine and schizophrenia, among others, which come with various symptoms as explained.
Or you may see somebody who was so outgoing becoming retrogressive. They become so withdrawn. They don't want to interact, don't want to go into activities that they used to enjoy. You may find somebody sleeping or eating too much or too little. That is another. You may find somebody in confusion. They don't know what is best for them. And some of them you hear, they talk about reduced energy. They feel so weak, which they cannot really explain. But at the same time, you may find that after someone has had issues with their mental health, you may find them having unexplained body aches and pains, lack of interest with life.
Mental disorders have grievous effects, as research reveals that 90% of suicidal deaths are caused by mental depression disorder, and therefore there is an urgent need to curb this menace.
I started battling with mental health when I was in my teens, and it led me to try and kill myself. And so after that experience, then there was a phase where the first time it happened, I didn't really handle it well.
Suicidal thoughts, it's one of the things that one should also pick from the communication of an individual. You'll be able to get to hear how they are relating with their life. If they're not comfortable, you will hear they are longing if they would be dead, or if something happened and they died, or they would also take their own life, or they would also inflict, they would be cause of death to others. So suicidal could be self-directed or directed to others, now homicide. Yeah.
Research by the World Health Organization and other researchers indicates that there are a number of challenges that we are facing as a nation, and especially those that are affected with mental health disorders. This may be accelerating the already worse mental condition.
For a long time, it's been a taboo topic. It's not been given the attention it requires. Like, even when you talk about mental health, what most people think it's schizophrenia.
Unfortunately, we are struggling in terms of how we address mental health issues in the country, and also how we tackle stigma. One is because there isn't much education about mental health, and there's not much information. And also the other issue is structurally, in terms of our health sector, is not really structured in a way that it will address the prevalence of mental health issues. What I mean by this is that there are very little resources that are given for mental health, whereby you'll find that even majority of the hospitals do not offer mental health services.
Reports by Mental and Neurological Healthcare in Kenya states that mental health system in Kenya is associated with several challenges. These includes acute shortages of human resources, poor health infrastructure, inadequate supply of appropriate medicine, and funding. The stigma associated with mental illness is also one of the biggest challenges to prevention of mental health services. Research by Maragu 2014 reveals that there is a severe shortages of mental health care specialists in Kenya, with only 54 psychiatrists and 418 trained psychiatric nurses for a population of 44 million. What then are the best ways to prevent mental disorders?
With mental illness, it gives you the kind of view you feel as if you're the only person who's going through this, and that means you isolate yourself a lot, and there are so many feelings of shame that come with it because you feel like no one can relate to what you're going through. But once what I've learned is, once you start sharing your story or talking about your experience, you realize that more people are going through this, and there is that safety in numbers, knowing that I'm not alone, that if I'm going through something, if I talk to the right people, someone will be able to relate and help me address my issues. And that's what inspired me.
So what I always say is, try to get who in your circle feels approachable, because it's not everyone who will understand what you're going through. So it's the first step is trying to get to know your circle and really knowing them, because most of the time we just think we have friends, but are they really friendships? So after you identify someone you can approach, you can try and open up to them. It's very, very important, and it's the first step to recovery.
Identify yourself, to understand your emotions, understand your behaviors, understand who you are, your life, your passions, what you don't like, what you like, why don't you like what you don't like, why don't you like spending time with people, why? Is this something that has been caused from the past events?
Did you know that the kind of food you take can build or drain your brain? Foods such as junk sugars, artificial sweeteners, and abusing drugs can heavily drain your brain.
Music therapy. You can listen to music. We have singers who can actually have you can listen to someone who is singing and actually feel healed, right? There are people who have very good voices. We have playing an instrument like violin, piano. We have spoken word people, the poets. We have yoga. We have even the fitness. This one will also fall there. The fitness people, the guys who are going to help you exercise all the time. So jogging, sleeping, exercising, ensuring that your body is moving all the time, connects with the mental health. It boosts your growth physically. Yes.
Mental health treatment measures include psychotherapy, also known as the talk therapy. Talk therapy is where a person or a group discusses their issues with a therapist who gets to help them process their feelings and learn a new coping skills. Other than psychotherapy, there are also medications such as antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and mood stabilizer, among others.
It is a mask, as you can see. A mask that has been... You can see a smile on its face, right? And this is what we normally do every day. We wear masks. It won't look like this, of course, but we wear masks every day of our lives. Leaving our home looks like every day. So you come out of your house. So my name is Wanja. So I meet up with my friends. They're like, "Hey Wanja, how are you? Unaendelea aje? How are you doing?" You know how young people behave, and they interact with other people. Say, niko poa. I'm good. I mean, how was your night? I'm good. And deep inside, you know you're not good. So what you're actually asking you to do is this. Take this mask off and let us help you. Take it off. We don't need this mask. Be the real you. It doesn't matter. And it's still okay to be vulnerable.